What up, people? Coach V, New Breed Boxing. The top 5 most common injuries in boxing from training to competition. If you haven't already done so, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit that notification bell so we know you're out there. So it's inevitable. If you're training and competing long enough, you will be sustaining some kind of injuries. Everybody's different. Some, from minor to extremely severe. Unfortunately, even to, people have passed away in the ring, unfortunately. Some people are accident prone, they get hurt in their damn sleep. Other people train for years and barely sustain any injuries. So it's a case by case thing. And there are some injuries that are not on this list that I've seen, which are usually the most horrific, the most rare ones, but those are usually due to some pre-existing injury that somebody already had. So I'm really not going to go into those, but feel free to put that in the comment section, whatever situations you may have seen before that are just extremely rare as far as injuries are concerned. So number 1, concussions. This is the big one everybody talks about. And first I'm going to go into how to prevent it. Concussions are something that, I think everybody's, it depends on how often you're competing and sparring. Training wise, that's not going to happen. So if you're doing a no contact boxing training just for fitness, you're safe, you're good to go. But concussions do happen, and if you have a certain amount of them, in amateur and professional boxing, you actually get suspended due to the concussion. You have to have a certain amount of time to recover, otherwise they won't let you compete. And in some cases, you got to get medically cleared in professional boxing afterwards, if you get a really bad one. So the only way to prevent concussions, I think Teddy Atlas said it best. He said, if you don't move your head, the other guy's going to move it for you. Head movement and defense, man. I mean, that's just inevitable. I mean, you're going to get punches thrown at your head. So if you don't know how to block, slip, bob, weave, and get up out the way, you're going to be eating those. And I do not recommend showing how tough you are on trading punches. And in the long term, sparring and competing, for a certain duration of time, it could definitely lead into brain damage. Unfortunately, there's the realities of the sport. We are rewarded in boxing for not only punching people in the face, but doing damage. I mean, that's just what the name of the game is. This is not, like I always say, man, you don't play boxing. This is not a sport to be taken lightly. So, you got to know what you're signing up for when you get involved in the sport on a competitive level. Second biggest injury, shoulder dislocation. I've seen this tons and tons and tons of times. I personally have worked with tons of people that I have had shoulder dislocations in training, sparring, and in competition. Matter of fact, one time I saw a fight in the Golden Gloves where both guys dislocated their shoulders in the same fight 3 times on each side. It was crazy, back to back. It was crazy. And I've been in situations where I had to pop the shoulder back in. I'm not a doctor. I just, maybe it was a Lethal Weapon movie I saw or whatever. I figured out how to do something at that time and it worked, thank God. But there was a couple of times it had to be done in the hospital. And that some people have a predisposition to shoulder injuries, and they wind up having to get, I think it's like an orthoscopic surgery. There's a few surgeries that I've seen, but the people that have had the surgeries, from what I've seen, they were successful, and after their recovery, they were able to get back in the ring with no problem. But unfortunately, that usually is the only way to solve that problem. If you're predisposed to shoulder dislocations, there's a very strong possibility if you're going to want to compete, you're going to have to wind up getting that surgery. I've seen people just throw a jab and get their shoulder dislocated. So, that's just something to keep in mind. You're going to want to consult your doctor about that. Facial cuts. Facial cuts in the amateurs are very rare because of the headgear. The only good thing about headgear is it does prevent a lot of the facial cuts, the superficial stuff, but it does nothing to stop your brain from bouncing off your skull. So don't be fooled by the headgear. That does nothing to keep your brain protected, but it will keep you from getting some cuts on your face and stuff like that. Cuts on your nose doesn't really do much for that. You're still probably gonna get the cuts on the bridge of the nose, but your eye sockets and stuff like that, they're usually pretty well protected, except right under. But for the most part, with the bigger gloves, with the headgear, you're pretty much safe in that department. But in the pros, you're completely exposed. So your orbital bone is right there to get, to get whacked. And yeah, there's a very high probability over time you will most likely sustain some kind of cuts around your eyes and nose. Also, fractures. Now, fractures, this is another one that, and these are in no particular order, by the way. Fractures, they mostly happen in the face and the hand and the wrist area. They have happened in the ribs too. I mean, they happened. Me personally, I've sustained fractures in my face, in multiple places, and surprisingly, they didn't really hurt that bad, except in the nose. Sometimes that hurts, but broken jaws, eye sockets, stuff like that. A lot of times you really don't even feel it, and you just, your adrenaline's pumping and stuff like that, and it hurts later a little bit. But everybody's pain tolerance is different. Me personally, it wasn't really so much about the matter of pain. It was just more a matter of, just having to sit it out and recover. That was the worst part for me. Wrist injuries and hand injuries are normally due to either bad technique or punching somebody in the wrong place. Meaning, when you're punching somebody in the head and face, you should be punching them in the strike zone here. Okay, punching somebody in the head and the skull. That's how you're gonna sustain most injuries to your wrist and your hand. Also, a lot of times when people throw hooks, they throw with their hand, like they don't turn it over and they bend their hand back, and that's just that's bad technique, and that's easily correctable. But yeah, so you got fractures all around the facial area, your jaw, your nose, eye sockets. Then you got the wrist, and then the boxer's fracture, they call it. Sometimes you get these, you got 25 small, very fragile bones in your hands. They're all very susceptible to damage. So, proper technique can usually prevent most of that damage from happening. And then the last injury I'm going to go over is just basically strains and tears and stuff like that. And that's more a matter of, usually, guys will be out of range throwing a shot with too much power and miss. Or just when you overexert yourself, pretty much. And it's kind of hard not to in boxing, because you're just reacting and acting based on small pockets of time and opportunity that you have to capitalize on instantly. So if you don't have a good warm-up, I would say a good stretch routine and a warm-up, which I'm a super big advocate of, and I have my stretch routine and warm-up routine is extremely intricate, and I make sure I go over everything. So I personally haven't sustained really many of those injuries ever. Training injuries almost never happen to me, because I do take a lot of time stretching and warming up, and I see most guys don't, and I think that's a big mistake that they make and they overlook. And it's one of the most underrated, important parts of your workout, is making sure you got that stretch routine and that warm-up routine real solid. So these are my top 5. I hope you found it informative. Go check out my Instagram, coach.v_. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification bell. So the next time we up out of here. Out.